Did it work? Are we live?
We are live.
All right. I was trying to do it without, like, usually in the morning I set up the event and then we join it. This time I just decided to go live straight and see what happened. So sorry for anyone who sees the recorded event and it's coming up. Most of you watch this after the fact, and it's kind of a trend we're seeing in the industry. So I was like, why am I pre-scheduling this? And everybody watches it afterwards.
That's true.
Yeah. So anyways, here we are. We're at the end of January, people. 1 out of 12 months down. What's next? February.
That's heavy, man. Hold on. Already? I'm already, pretty much all the way through this month. And I thought we was just getting things started.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the tricky thing. Like, right, we do this warning throughout the year of the things you should be working on as an MSP so that you don't get behind. And so many people spend time like thinking, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it sometime. The number of times I hear you guys, oh yeah, we'll do this thing sometime. Like, sometime never happens, people. And you find yourself at the end of the year and you look back at all the things you did not get done because you were not cognizant of your time. And I really want to make sure that that's what these events are for. They're not meant for a big marketing scheme. These events are meant to keep you on schedule. So if you look at these and just look at the title, those are the things that are important right now. Last week was last week's key stakeholder interviews. That's why I have the event counter. What are we doing? Where are we going? What's important right now? So that the year does not get away from you and you can spend time actually getting things done. So this week, according to the events calendar, we need to be talking about how to talk architecture with your clients. Originally, this event during the year was how to go step by step down an architecture audit. And I don't think I really need to explain how to do an architecture audit to people anymore. You can make this a lot more efficient. Like, for instance, in our tool, we have smart audits. We just released that last fall. You can now say, hey, if it's not a Dell, create a project. If it's over this amount of time old, create a project. If it's doing this, create a project. And we're working on Ninja 1 right now. And hopefully, if everything goes well, you'll start seeing their compound rules. We're going to be doing that with projects with Ninja, where if it discovers something, it's going to automatically create a project upon device discovery.
Okay. All right. I'm liking that. Yep.
Tips and tricks to make things more efficient. People know, like, Skip and I are lazy. We like to find easier ways to do things. And so our product is developed very deliberately with that in mind. And
yeah, I've spent many hours working to be lazy.
Yeah, many hours trying to be lazy. And that's why if you look at our software, we're trying to make workflows that make sense. So if you need a workflow that'll make things a lot easier for you, email us.
Yeah.
Hey,
reach out.
We could just do this. If you could create a button that would make this happen for me in the software, it would make my life a lot easier. Cool. Let me know. I am all about laziness here, people.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and lean into this and workflows. And I'm going to be doing a lot of that when I'm talking to the devs this year. So we have a couple more APIs I want to get in first, but I really want to be smoothing out those workflows where you can say, hey, this device was discovered. I want these things to happen. And I don't want to jump around. So I'm actually going to be visiting some MSPs on site here in the next month and just having explain to me, what are the pains? What can I make easier for you? What workflows can we make more natural so that you can actually generate revenue quicker and you can spend more time talking to your clients about what matters? Which kind of brings us to architecture audits, right?
Yep.
You defined your stack. You know what you're delivering. And some of you have not defined your stack. You just kind of shoot from the hip. And you know there's a problem. Please define your stack. Use one of our reports. Write down what you're actually trying to do. Fill in Skip's blanks with, instead of just saying generic best practice networking, say, hey, we do this. We do Meraki. We do whatever it is, FortiGate, whatever it is you're doing.
Well, let me highlight a really important element there that I think gets missed sometimes. And we think about defining our stack so many times from a sales perspective. All right. And kind of just in those terms, it's client facing. But here's the real value that you might not appreciate. When you define your stack, it helps your internal teams be so much more clear about what's expected. And smoothing out that operational sort of roughness that you might have. Sometimes we talk, understandably, but a little jaded towards operational efficiencies. This is one of those areas that you really can make things better for your team by just providing the standard stack. And that allows them to hit items, identify things, and go, all right, this is standard. I need to work on this, or this is not standard. And I need to raise the flag and do something else. And that understanding for your team sometimes can just simplify the smallest of details. And you simplify enough of those little details, then their workday, their workflow gets much smoother, much more efficient, and your team runs better.
Yeah. And when you define these stacks, and when you're talking about architecture, you want to make sure it runs smoothly for your clients as well. And there's a tendency amongst you MSPs to go in and try to over-explain the stack to your clients. Yes, you can over-explain the stack to your engineers. That's fine. By all means, nerd out with your engineer staff. But when you go talk to your client and you've got the architecture stack done, you're so proud. You want to show your value, so you're going to show them all the things you're working on. You're going to show them all the projects you're going to be taking care of. No, sorry, wrong. Architecture, when you are talking about that with your client, you have to translate into business best practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. So you're like, well, I don't know what all they do. Cool. Now you've asked the right question.
Yep.
Go ask your client, hey, I just finished auditing your architecture for the year. I checking your hardware, software, and all this stuff. I'm not going to bore you with the details. But can you tell me what it is why you have this server? Like, what is it doing for you?
Yeah.
And it'd be like, and it might be that you used to run QuickBooks, or you used to run Peachtree, or maybe at one point it was a Microsoft Dynamics server. And it's just something they've kind of maintained. Like, do you still do Microsoft Dynamics? Like, no, we switched to QuickBooks like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can we repurpose the server or retire it?
Yeah.
Now, it's a hard thing for an MSP to admit, because that's less money on your table. However, that's more money they can put in the budget towards something else. So be ready to say, hey, look, if we retire this server, it looks like you're not using it anymore. So you ask them, what's the server being used for? And like, oh, we're not using it for anything. We don't do Dynamics anymore. Cool. If I retire this, you'll have enough money in your budget for us to do X. We can upgrade your internet connection. We can do some lunch and learns for your staff as a perk. We'll come in, we'll bring in pizza or sandwiches, and we'll talk about current trends about AI and whatever else. Yeah. And you can start adding consultative practices in and retire that asset.
Absolutely.
It's where we're going anyways, people. You might as well lean into it. You're going to see fewer and fewer on-prem devices. You've been seeing this for the past 10 years. Mm. If you don't understand that this is the way the world is going, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But architecture-wise, we're smaller and smaller footprints on-prem. Yep. It's more and more virtual. It's more and more outsourced. Yep. And so as you're retiring that Azure server, as you're retiring that on-prem server, immediately have something else ready that's going to augment their business from conversations you've had with them. Like, hey, remember when you wanted to retire that timesheet system, but you just didn't have the money for it? Well, if you retire this server, that's going to give you an extra $1,500 a month on your budget, because we're not supporting that anymore. And you can move that into that new timesheet system. And guess what? The margins are better for you as an MSP anyways.
Yep. Well, and there's all sorts of really cool angles to attack that with. Being able to sit down, especially this time of year, is perfect, and say, hey, we want to make sure we're identifying your critical infrastructure. Our engineers put together this list, and we know these things are technology wise important, but I want to make sure we understand how it impacts your business. And you can kind of run through a few of those and say, hey, all right, so here's the server. Can you tell us what are the major lines of business that this is supporting in your organization? Is this a sales function? Is this a customer support? Is this a manufacturing? All right. And you can start at a real high level that way. All right. So you kind of reframe the conversation we're having with their clients, that perspective, like, okay, yeah, I want to do that out. And then you break it down. Okay, so this is a sales support. Is this for sales transactions or is this sales quoting? All right. And you just start the ball rolling, and you don't have to have all of these answers.
Yeah.
So I said something to one of our members earlier this week, and I should have. It's one of those things when you say it, and you step back and go, "Wow, where'd that come from?" That was actually pretty smart. When you roll into these meetings, you don't show up unprepared, right? But you show up not prepared to teach or to explain. You show up prepared to learn.
Correct.
And changing your perspective on that, let me learn the details. And so your client, and so I understand your clients may have assumed, right or wrong, they may have assumed that you already knew all this, right? So if you go in there and ask this question, they look at you and go, you don't know? All right. You could find yourself in maybe an awkward spot. So start with, hey, I want to update. I want to make sure. All right. No one's going to give you a hard time for that. And then start at really high level, kind of no-brainer stuff. And as you work down, your part of that conversation falls back a little bit. You don't have to do as much. And your client comes up and they start driving that, explaining the details and the pain points and what they'd really like to be able to do with this stuff. And your job then is make sure you take notes, all right? Because they're just feeding you gold at that point.
Yeah, and that's the problem is we have a lot of VCIOs out there who think that their job is to go in and teach and to go in and explain and put things in the client's perspective. And Skip's hit it right there. Your job is to learn, which is a much easier thing to do, but you don't get to show off, people. You don't get to go in there and have people go, oh my gosh, look how much Adam Walter knows. Look how much is going on. Oh man, I can't believe how great. No, you don't get to do that. You get to go in and be humble and say, teach me about your business. I'm going to fill in the cracks with technology that's going to take your business and double your revenue next year or in the next 3 years. And that's your job. It's so much easier. That's why I tell people when they often ask me like, hey, who should I train up to be a VCIO? And I said, not an engineer. I would rather teach a person who spent the last 20 years selling hot dogs how to talk to clients than I would rather than teaching somebody who has been troubleshooting Cisco and doing BGP for 10 years and is an expert doing this, how to talk to clients. That hot dog vendor has spent their entire career talking to people, making small talk, learning their stories. Give me a taxi cab driver, for crying out loud. Somebody you can have a conversation. Well, you have a whole team of engineers over there. They can solve the technical problems. The engineer in them can figure that out. Somebody needs to collect the story from your client. Somebody needs to be curious and be willing to be taught. Hey, what is your story? Tell me more about you. And the skill level there is all people skills. But they won't solve any problems on site. You are 100% right. You know what they're not also going to be doing? Working tickets on site. They can't. They don't know how. Yeah. There you have one job, and that's to discuss with the client what they're trying to do, what their business is, and to understand it the best way possible. That does not require a really complicated skill set. It just requires people skills. And then they can come back to your engineers, that beautiful staff that you spent the last 15, 20 years cultivating. And they can say, hey, guys, girls, we have a client here who cannot sell on site at concerts. Why is that? Yeah. I have a client here who they want to work from home, but they all their stuff is on site, or they can't work from home because it's too much of a pain. It's too slow, or they have no way of monitoring productivity or whatever. What do you guys got? And then watch the engineer solve the problem. That's it. Because an engineer is going to go on site and try to be the smartest person there. But if you find that engineer who is curious and willing to be humble and say, I don't know, that person can become a CIO really easy. The ego is what keeps you from being a CIO.
It can, yes.
And
And you
so,
said something really important there too. Solve the problems. All right, and that I see this again and again. It's a trait in our industry. It exists elsewhere, but I do feel it's really heavy in our industry. It's probably what got us here in the first place in some way. We want to solve problems. All right. There's a challenge there. We want to, whatever it is, we want to solve those problems. And without the right direction, without the right context, all we're going to do is solve technology problems. Right? Great. But is it a technology problem that they have? Is it a great solution to a problem they don't have? Right? And if you shift your focus to solving their business problems, all right, that's when the value really comes out. So once you grab that business problem, take it to the engineers. Yes, they're going to solve it with technology, all right, but it provides value for your clients, and it allows your team to exercise the skill sets that they really have. And both of those together is what's going to really make things more profitable for you.
okay. I feel like we're broken records here, Skip.
I know. I do too.
But the thing is, like, we're still not changing ones. I do feel the narrative out there, people changing to like, how do I discuss business with my clients? And I have been hearing that more. So I don't know if that's just echoing back to us from people watching this, or if this is just finally the entire industry starting to realize that their clients don't care about technology other than how can it drive profit centers.
I am seeing, and it's really exciting. We're, diving deeper in to the community with this, and I worked with a member just this week, and they were showcasing some of the information they'd put together, and it's exactly on this track. I mean, they're doing exactly, what we would think they should be doing. Their challenge now is, okay, I've got all this, I've got the right focus. I need a tool to help us get it, in front of my clients and scale this up. And that's obviously where our platform really comes in. So those members that join are able to utilize our platform and our resources so much faster, is because they've already made that shift. So when you're thinking about these things out there and you're looking to the future of your company, this kind of mental shift needs to happen, and you're going to have resources. But if you've made that shift, now you need to capitalize on it. Now you need to scale that. Do you have a group of account managers, VCIO type people that are out there, but they're constrained by capacity, that they can only do what they can do, right? I mean, and that limit, that 5 client limit that seems to pop up so often, is really impacting your ability to scale that out. Then you need to look at resources that will capitalize on that so you can do it at scale. Obviously, a little shameless plug there. We're great for that, but there's a couple of things that you can tackle at both of those kind of maturity levels that we're talking about.
Yeah. But it all comes back to understanding your client. And it feels like cheating, people. I get it. It feels like you're being lazy. Mm-hmm. But as we said earlier on in this message, like, sometimes laziness is the best way to go. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need to stop putting so much work in. If you're spending 6 hours preparing for a client meeting, you're doing something wrong. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
I can grab a rando on the street and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go in there and you're going to take notes. Can you write? Yes. Do you own a nice outfit? Yes. Okay. Give me a polo shirt. I don't care. And I want you to go in there. I want you to ask this business, what do you guys do? Tell me about your big money makers. Tell me about what your story, your company is, and where you'd like to go, and just take notes. Mm-hmm. And then let them go in, ask those, and have them come back out and look at their notes and say, oh, here's some technology that can help them. And that's an architecture audit, right? Yeah. Now you're going to take the gaps. Like, they don't have this thing that can make them really good. They don't have a 5G connection, and they're trying to sell at a concert. They're using their phone. They should be using a proper antenna so that they don't get drowned out by the tower. Okay, let's get them that. Okay, what's next? Oh, they want to work from home, but they're working off of a 10 meg pipe. Let's get that figured out.
Yeah.
Let's get them better connections at home so that they can live stream, and they're meeting online with Zoom, and they're doing all these things. Cool. Adam Walter, I have 600 megs at my house and I'm paying the same rate you are for your internet. Let's talk that through. The engineers are solving it. The rando on the street, the person who actually interviewed them, didn't know jack about what I'm saying right now.
No.
But you're going to tell them, this is a great exercise for you. I'm going to tell the rando off the street. I'm going to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. I can get it so that you will always have connection at your concerts. And I can make it so you're going to work from home and it's going to cost $2,500 a month. Go back in there and let them know that. And have a great conversation, by the way. Go back in. Now you've sold a project. Now you have sold a experience that this client wants. So that little mind exercise I just did, that works. You can take these people and they can set and schedule events and work and deliver projects without actually knowing anything about the project. And if the client wants details, guess what that person's going to say? Like, I really don't know how they make this. I'm going to have to ask George when I get back to my desk.
Yep.
Is that okay? Can I take this question back and talk to George? And if it gets too detailed, can I bring him with me next time so he can explain in detail? Oh, that's great. The problem is you guys are sending your engineers who should be billing time for their efforts. You're sending your engineers who are very brilliant human beings, and you're making them be salespeople or project managers, and they suck at it. Some of them are good at it. You'll find one that's good at it every once in a while. Like, I suck at project management. I still do it, but it's not that I would never put it on my resume and say, hey, bring me in as a project manager.
Right.
I like people. I work with people really well. I'm a great director. I'm a great delegator.
Well, and so this is a term that many of you probably have heard in some sort of, are used. You're making four-legged sales calls. All right. And you know that's a problem. All right. That silly phrase of four-legged sales calls comes up for a reason. All right. You're overutilizing your resources and not getting the value back, because when that engineer rolls out, half the time they're checked out. I mean, they're really desperate to open up their laptop and start working tickets, but they have to sit there and, put on a game face while the account manager talks something else. All right. This is a great way to maximize your team and not make those four-legged sales calls. Those are not an efficient use of your resources.
Yeah. And it's not hard, people. You're just trying to be smart. Stop it. Think of yourself as a cab driver from New York who's coming in and doing an interview. What knowledge set would they have?
No.
Right? These are great people at talking. When I'm in a cab, it's every once in a while I get somebody who's really quiet. It's okay. But then also I get people who are recent migrants, or maybe they've been in the United States for 20 years and they tell me their story. And I love hearing that stuff. Yeah. And I'm highly technical, or at least I used to be. So I want you guys to know, like, when we talk about architecture audits, when we talk about these things, I want you to think in terms of, how do I learn from my clients? I already know all the architecture. Oh, look, they're an HP environment with a spaghetti mess for a wiring cabinet. Awesome. What I want to see is go ahead and make this about the client. Pretend like you're on a date with a really attractive person. Learn about them. Learn their story, and yes and it. If you don't know what yes anding is, ask your recent chatbot or your AI, what is yes and? That's how you have conversations with clients. You don't need a big slideshow. You don't need to present to them giant spreadsheets. That's going to go right over their heads and it won't matter.
Yeah.
What they care about is the relationship. And we've been beating you over the heads on this. And it's not about making better slides or presenting better data. It's about valuing the person across the table and making it simple.
Yeah.
So that's my tip for you today on architecture audits. Stop talking about architecture.
I like it.
Do the audit. By all means, do a gap analysis. Use our SMART rules, like let it find the white space, build the projects, and then think, how are these projects going to help my client make more money? And you won't know that until you talk to your client and say, tell me about your business.
That's it.
All right, this is great. Well, we'll talk about this in 12 months.
Yep.
And we'll see how it goes then. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Also, we do have a podcast that comes out on Mondays. Make sure that you like it. Leave a review for us. It means a lot to me when you guys leave reviews. And it really helps us independent vendors float to the top and overpower those giant conglomerates that keep pushing out ads. So leave us a review on our podcast. Check us out on our Discord. We are always here to help and have great conversations with you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.